The big problem here for a long time was that the United States was running a big trade deficit with China. And so the United States was buying more than it could afford to buy. It was buying it on the credit card. And people were buying too much stuff in America, and they were not exporting enough back to China, so they were running a very big trade deficit. And so Donald Trump has come along with a very simplistic answer, and that is to put tariffs on Chinese goods. Well, we know tariffs don't work. Firstly, the cost of tariff protection is not worth it. This is something we have learnt in the past. We learnt it in the 1930s. We learnt it in the era of globalisation, the last few decades, that those countries, such as those of us in East Asia, who reduced our tariff protection and entrenched ourselves in global value chains, we found that we could build the wealth of our countries. We could develop better if we were actually integrated into the global economy instead of trying to build high barriers, high walls to block out the global economy. The second thing is that we need actually what we've already just created in the last few decades, and that is the World Trade Organization. We need to have a set of rules around these questions so that individual countries cannot just change their mind overnight, erect trade barriers and distort global trade. We've had so much of that in the past, and in creating the World Trade Organization, the efforts that most of us in the world put in to build that global trade system, those efforts are now being eroded, are being broken down because these big wealthy countries are deciding they don't want to follow those rules. They argue that other developing countries are not following rules. So let's have a more open discussion about these things. Let's go back to the table and actually look at how is the World Trade Organization functioning? How do countries need to be transparently meeting their obligations? How does the process of adjudication, when there are disputes, the moment it's being blocked by the United States? We need to have this discussion as an international community. And so maybe the process of negotiation and crisis that we're in at the moment with tariff protection returning in the short term is going to cause us problems, but maybe in the medium term it can push us towards reforming the World Trade Organization so that everyone is convinced that it is benefiting them.